In this lecture, we're going to go over the basics of graphing in Excel, and these are listed in Appendix C, which will be posted on Canvas. So to get ready to graph, you need data. The x-axis data is stored in a single column or row. You don't want any blank rows. The y-axis data is placed in a single column or row per data set to the right of the x-axis. Series name can be in a cell directly above your first Y entry. You can also use rows. So for example, here we have time and temperature. This would be your series name. To create a scatter graph, you're going to select the data range, including the series names. You're going to go to Insert Charts, and you're going to select Scatter. It's the one that has shapes on it. There are 5 options for a scatter graph. You have marker data points only, markers connected by smooth curves, just smooth curves, markers connected by straight lines, and just straight lines. 9 times out of 10, you want option 1 if it's experimental data. If it is a theoretical data, you want option 3. In this case, we have chosen the points connected by a smooth line. We have our basic graph that's been inserted. We have the data shown with colored borders if you click on the graph. You have a column header, which is being used as the title since there's only one series on this graph. And you have the chart as an object with a name. And on our design ribbon, we have chart tools that we can use to edit our chart layout, our design, and our format. Excel also has recently made all of these elements a little bit easier to find with the plus sign next to the graph. These are your Add Chart Elements buttons. You have an axis title. You can triple click to select the entire text to start editing it. Here's your formatting and your filtering, and then you can check what you want on and off. Excel uses the format applied to the temperature data. So if I have temperature in 2 decimal places here, it's going to put it to 2 decimal places in my axes. You can edit your axes to make them more visually appealing. If you want to modify the way your graph is plotted, you can click on your chart tools and then a design tab, which will allow you to switch rows and columns, select graph data. You can change the graph appearance for a basic style. You can actually even change the chart style itself. There are a few quick layouts to choose that will automatically turn on some grid lines and a legend. For example, the first one has a graph title at the top, an x-axis label, y-axis label, the legends at the right. It has no major or minor X grid lines. It does have major Y ones. It doesn't have minor ones. It doesn't have data labels or a regression line or the equation or the R value. To add a chart element, besides using the plus sign, you can also click on the button that says Add a Chart Element if you want to add axis titles or title or data label. You can format the graph's borders and backgrounds by clicking on the Formatting tab. You can choose what needs to be formatted. So if you want to format the data series or the axis labels, it's listed here what you are formatting. So in this case, it would be formatting the chart area. Once your format dialog box is open, you can basically just click on whatever else you want to format, and it'll switch between those without closing the formatting dialog box. If I want to modify the appearance of a plot, I can also double click on any curve I wish to modify, and that's going to open up my format data series where I have my line, my marker, fill, I have my shapes, and I have the data itself. If, for example, I wanted to change the line type or the marker type, it's going to show me the type of marker that's being used and its size and its fill, or it's going to show me the line and its thickness. If I want to add a second curve to a plot, I need to select the graph, not the data set, and I can right click on it, and the data is surrounded by colored borders. I can actually just drag the corners of the box to a new column so that both Y data sets are highlighted, and that will add it. There's a few different ways you can add it. For different X values in a chart, you can go to Chart Tools, Design, Data, and select the data, and you can actually add the second data set to the graph. You'd add a new series name, you can add new X values, you can add new Y values. So now I have 2 graphs on my chart. I can add a chart feature by using my chart elements button. In this case, I want to add more options for my axes, which will open up my formatting. I can then format my options. I can also go to chart tools, format current selection, format selection if I've selected the axes. I can right click on the axes number you want to modify and choose format axes. You can also double click on the axis itself. You can modify the appearance of your axes and your grid lines. You can format the major grid lines panel. You can add minor grid lines. You can change their colors, their line type, and their transparency. There's a lot of things you can do behind the scenes to make your graphs look visually appealing outside of the basic graph that Excel makes. You can add a trend line, which we'll get to in the next chapter, where it's a curve that goes through the points on the data. You can have a linear, exponential, logarithmic, polynomial, power, or something called a moving average. And just like everything else in Excel, you can format it, you can display the equation. You can add error bars for horizontal and vertical. You can have a fixed value, a fixed percentage, a standard deviation, a standard error, and you can even make custom ones. You can move a chart. If you select the chart, the 8 white dots at the border, you can do chart tools, design, location, move chart, or you can right click on the chart and select move chart. You can move it to a new sheet and give it a new name, or you can actually put it as an object in a different sheet. Line graphs versus an XY scatter graph. What we want to look at here is here we have the same data, and here's how it displays on a line chart versus an XY scatter plot. It actually is a linear representation between the data. The problem is a line chart, your axis is evenly distributed, so each point is evenly spaced. So it's putting the same distance between a value of 1 and 1.2 and 1.44 as it would between 1 and 2, which leads to your linear relationship looking more exponential, which is why we typically do not use line graphs. We use XY scatter plots. In the next lecture, we're going to look at some ways of interpreting data.